seatbelts. If you need to use the restroom, they are just right behind that wall. You can use either one on either side. After the event, we will have time and space. If anybody wants to stay, you're welcome to stay. We'll have a fire outside if you want to talk to anybody and just have some time to connect. That will be made available to you. So I know many of you will probably have to rush out, but don't feel rushed from our end. You are most welcome here, and we are glad to have you. So without further ado, I'd like to invite forward Doug Paget to kick us off with a video, which he will hit play for right now.
Well, I'd like to introduce you now to our preacher today, Doug Paget. Doug is a national speaker, he's a writer, he's a pastor, he's got this wide imagination that you're going to have the opportunity to hear about today.
We are going to do this ride that Julio mentioned, where we're going to ride our bikes from San Diego across the country to St. Augustine, Florida. Do that along and as near to the U.S.-Mexico border as we can to bear witness to the experience of people. It's going to take us 67 days to do this.
Our primary effort is to take the stories that we learn along the border and to tell them over time with people around the United States.
And they killed her husband, and they have nowhere to go.
Especially in places that we think the political opinion about the border could really have impact on who we are as a country and who represents us.
Republicans have made a deliberate effort to talk to religious voters, and we really believe many evangelical voters really do want to find a new option.
This is the way we choose in this country to manage this part of the border, is to make this desert so deadly that if anyone crosses here, they're going to suffer in the desert.
Todos son muertos. Todos.
We're 400 feet to a water tank and 800 feet to the road. Just didn't quite make it.
The systems that are created, they didn't just exist. Someone made them. And if we made them, we can change them.
Thank you. That's very nice of you. Thanks for being here. We're in the process of making this documentary. When I say we, it's really the documentary filmmakers, which are Clayton and Kim, who are here still making these documentaries. And we've just started showing these in front of people. In fact, you're only the third group to see that with us in person. So thanks for watching it. We have 4 other segments from the documentary that we want to show you. The documentary is, maybe you picked up in there, we made that included our bike ride from San Diego, California, all along the U.S.-Mexico border to the tip of Texas and then across the rest of the United States to Florida. We did that last September, and we're trying to tell the stories that we learned there and introduce you to the people we met there because we think that stories change people's lives, and we think stories change people's minds, and we think that our border practices really need to change in this country. So that's what we're going to do tonight. You're going to hear from a number of people. You're going to hear from Miriam, who is here. You're going to hear from her in a bit. So she lives here, and you're going to hear some of her story. You're going to meet Dora Rodriguez, who you saw in the video there for a moment. You're going to meet Mark Adams. You're going to hear from Vanessa Ryerson. You're going to hear from Abe Bonowitz. You're going to hear from Dan Dietrich. We live all over the country. Some people in Arizona, some people in Indiana. I live in Minneapolis, people in Arkansas. We've all come together. Our ride included people from around the country. And the reason that we're telling these stories in Ohio, and yesterday we were in Pennsylvania, and tomorrow we're going to Michigan, and then we're going to Indiana, and then Wisconsin, and then to Minnesota, is because border issues are not just issues facing people who live in the states that border Mexico. It's not just an issue for California and Arizona and New Mexico and Texas. It's an issue for all of us. And we think that we need a national movement of people of good conscience and people of good faith, people who think the common good is what should matter, saying more about what's going on our border practices. So we're excited to introduce you to these. That's me. That's the work I do. We have a couple of parts to our day here. You're going to see these some videos, like I told you, you're going to hear from these folks, and we're going to do a little trivia. I really like this part. I feel like a game show host, so my inner Bob Barker comes to life. And here we go. So we're gonna go through a little trivia with you here. You have a card, or hopefully you have a card in your hand. Here's how this is gonna work. Maybe you have a pen too. We hope so. We have a bunch of them for you. We're gonna do the trivia questions. We're doing the trivia questions here. Well, there's always a backup. Okay, so I don't know what that is, but anyway. Okay, we're gonna do trivia questions here, and if you get it right, you're going to hold your card up in the air and you're going to wave it around. And then at the end of our time, when you're all done, we're going to ask you to write your name and address and email and phone number and social security number and mom's maiden name on those cards, and then drop them off, and it's a way you sort of keep up with us. All right. Yeah, well, we've already got that on all of you, so it's fine. We scanned your wallets when you walked in the room, but thank you for that question. All right, so here's one of the questions. Dan, can I just get a little more volume out of this one? What % of Americans say that immigrants strengthen the country because of their hard work and talents, as opposed to being a burden on our country? Is it 24% who say that immigrants strengthen our country, 48%, 66%, or 82%? Go ahead and jot your answer down. You can show it next to somebody next to you, so they know you're not, you're not going to be graded on this. This isn't, no one's going to keep track of any of this. No, you're just going to write it down on your card, and the answer is what percent? I think I heard someone say it, 66%. This trend has reversed since 1994, as you see there, and that's good news, right? Okay, it's not 100%. We're going to work to get it to 100%, but it's also not 24%. It isn't everybody that thinks immigrants are a problem in this country. 66% of us, a majority, greater than a majority, believe that they're positive. Let's drive that number up to 70%, huh? Let's get that number up to 80%. Let's change even that part of the story. So that's a little bit of good news for you. Hey, as we travel along the border, we asked people a single question everywhere we went along the U.S.-Mexico border, people that we met, people that lived in Mexico, people that lived in the United States. What do you know by living here on the border that you wish the people in the rest of the country knew? And to a person, it was to our surprise that over and over and over, we heard people say this: the border is not as dangerous as everyone's saying. It's not dangerous to live here. We have a supercut that we'll put up on the internet, and you can share around, of people just one after the other all along saying, it's not like that. I started to realize that some of us in the rest of the country and people who are spreading bad stories about what's happening on our border are slandering the people who live along the border. So we're going to show you a little video about that here in a minute. So that's lesson one that we learned, is that the people who live along the border recognize that it's not dangerous the way people say. Lesson number two is, it's extremely dangerous if you're a migrant. It's not unsafe for the people who live in the United States along the border. It's extremely deadly for people who are migrants because of our U.S. policies, because of the choices that we make as a federal government. We're going to show you some of those impacts as well. So that's the second piece of the content that you're going to get today. And the third is that the people who are doing something about that misery and that heartache and that pain and that difficulty that's created because of our U.S. policies and because of the billions of dollars spent and our immigration policies, the people solving for that are almost totally small nonprofits working on shoestring budgets, doing the very best that they can, and having to come up against a serious amount of distress, of human suffering. So it's small nonprofit. They're raising money like by doing fundraisers and bake sales and Amazon wish lists. It shouldn't be this way. We need to tell our government that our policies are creating the problem, and our government has a responsibility to pay to fix those problems and get off the backs of the small nonprofits who are trying to do good in this world. That's an applause line, so feel free to applaud if you like to. So that's what we want to do, right? To point one, that is not what people are saying. This little place is in Mission, Texas. We stumbled upon it on a bike ride, just rode up and we're like, what in the world is this? 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Thursday, and there's a honky-tonk 50 yards from a border wall. And this is what we learned.
You're riding by?
Bicycles, yeah, that's our bikes up there.
Oh, wow.
I think this is the border, guys. Right? Yeah. We are legally crossed it.
We started riding in San Diego.
Oh, wow, okay.
We're going into Reynosa, Mexico tomorrow. And
you're going into Reynosa,
yeah,
huh?
we work with people that do humanitarian work with migrants and asylum
so you've
seekers.
got people with you.
Yeah.
Because Reynosa's not a really good place. Now you can go in Progresso, you don't need anybody with you. But if you're going to go to Reynosa, you need people with you.
Yeah, we work.
I'm originally from Minnesota, but
Are
I
you?
just want to know those people
there as
over
a
there
kid?
are Minnesotans.
These two sitting
Yeah,
at the table?
they just bought the valley. They're from northern Minnesota.
I was just thinking about it when you came over. I'm looking around going, this is just like any other town in the States that you go to. You want to go have a beer, you go have a beer, there's great music. This just happens to be right on the border. I mean, you can't get any closer to the border than there. And it's no different. I mean, yeah, there are issues, but I think for the most part, people just carry on, you know.
Yeah. So many people in Minnesota would be afraid to come to the border.
Absolutely.
Maybe you've heard it too. Have you heard people tell you that you should be afraid to come
Are
here?
you really going down the mission? Well, yeah. We've enjoyed it so far. Matter of fact, in 10 days, we bought a house here. So we're going to be here 7 months, and in northern Minnesota, 5 months.
And all this stuff about worry about the border, all the stuff you hear, that didn't cause you to wait?
No.
Like you decided to do it now?
No, yeah, time was right for us to sell.
I'm heartbroken every time. I mean, the river has been the life force of the Rio Grande, and it's been shared by both sides, and you negotiate the border. Then a wall comes up, and it just says something else. What do you think?
There's got to be a better way. I don't know what it is, I guess, or I may be gone before that's found.
Isn't that sad?
Yeah.
So one of the things that we learned in this journey is that no matter where people are on other political issues, spent a little time in that bar. That was a bar full of Trump supporters, just to be clear. And they made it clear to all of us who they wanted for president. They also thought that wall was a ridiculous bit of nonsense and didn't want it for a minute. So the politics feel different when you get closer to the situation. So we think if you can get people closer to the situations, maybe we can change our politics. Wouldn't that be great? So we think that's what we want to do. So that's what we're up to. We're going to introduce you to some people today. Miriam, would you come up and share a bit of your story? And you're going to meet Dora Rodriguez. Dora is also going to be, you're going to hear from her in a moment, but Dora is willing to do some translating for us. So this is Miriam. As we've been putting this, come on up. As we've been putting this, this day together here, we've asked for people from each location if they would have somebody local that could tell their story, and these are the folks who want to do so.
Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Miriam Vargas. Soy de Honduras. Emigré de mi país en el 2005.
I migrated from my country in 2005.
Entré por la frontera de Texas.
I came in the border of Texas.
Le voy a hacer corta la historia para que no se me vayan a aburrir.
I'm going to try to make the story a little short so you guys don't get bored.
En el 2005 pues yo entré por la frontera de Texas.
In 2005, I came in the border in Texas.
Lo venimos un recorrido con muchas personas desde Honduras a buscar oportunidades de sobrevivir.
We left with a lot of people and trying to find opportunities, better opportunities to live.
En Honduras, pues, desgraciadamente no hay trabajo, gobiernan las gangas.
I'm sorry, lo siento. In Honduras, there is no jobs. There is a lot of gang activities.
Entonces yo decidí salir con mi hermana.
So
Salimos en un grupo de como de 20 personas. Unas cruzamos, otras no.
So I decided to leave the country with my sister, and it was about 20 of us. Some of them crossed, some of them didn't.
A mí me cogió migración, entonces me tuvieron detenida 72 horas.
I was arrested by immigration and I was detained for 72 hours.
Luego me liberaron y me dieron un permiso de 6 meses para que yo entrara al país.
They let me free after for 6 months, so I could be in this country with a permit.
Solamente era un permiso y yo me tenía que presentar a corte.
It was just a permit to be around, and I had it to be in court.
Luego, a la dirección que yo llegué aquí a Ohio, estuve viviendo por 1 año y luego me cambié de dirección. Yo cambié la dirección, pero no sé qué pasó. Entonces, las oficinas de migración me mandaron una carta con la hora, fecha y día que yo me tenía que presentar a mi audiencia con la Corte de Migración. Pues todo ese tiempo se tardó 3 años para que llegara la carta. Entonces,
No, stop. I tell her, please help me because I forget things. Yeah, senior moments in between. So she said that she had to go and present herself to court, and then she was in the same address. Huh? Right. Yeah. Would you like to help us? Come here. Es que tal vez él traduce mejor.
no sé.
You do professionally. Wonderful. Yes. Thank goodness. Thank you for letting me.
So she moved to Ohio, and then she was living here for a while. She changed addresses, and they sent her a mail to tell her about the hearing.
Luego, pues yo nunca, me cambié de dirección, pues no recibí, se quedó así
So
el
she
caso
changed
olvidado.
addresses, and she didn't get the hearing mail directed to her. So she had to go and present herself in with the judge.
Un día, pues, estaba embarazada de mi segunda hija y pues migración andaba haciendo sus rondas y pues iba a entrar a mi apartamento cuando me pararon.
So I was pregnant with my second baby, and I was out of the house, and then I tried to get into my apartment, and immigration was there waiting for me.
Me enseñaron un folder y me preguntaron si mi nombre, y pues yo les contesté la verdad, sí, soy yo, soy Miriam Vargas.
So they asked for her name and things, and she just said, told the truth, that she was the one they were looking for.
Pues me dijeron, pues tú eres una fugitiva de...
So they said, you're a fugitive from immigration.
Luego entonces me dijeron, te tienes que... El oficial de migración llamó a su supervisor y le dijo que yo estaba embarazada.
So the guy who was asking her questions called his supervisor and told him that Miriam was pregnant.
Entonces él le dijo que me dejara, pero que me tenía que presentar a las oficinas de migración.
So the supervisor said, well, just leave her there, but she has to present herself with immigration.
Allí pues empezó mi pesadilla de miedo.
That's where my nightmare started.
Empezaron pues que me tenía que estar presentando todas las semanas, todos los martes.
So first thing that they said I had to go every Tuesday and present myself.
Luego me dieron 6 meses.
And they gave me 6 more months.
Pues estaba vigente la deportación, entonces así empezaron luego 2 años, 1 año, 2 años, y luego cuando hubo cambio de presidente, que fue el presidente Trump, entró una...
Entonces, so they say, okay, you can stay for 6 months, 6 more months, but you have to present yourself every Tuesday. And then they said, okay, now you can stay 2 years, but you have to present yourself every Tuesday. But then the president changed, and dear wonderful Mr. Trump came in.
El presidente dio una ley que estaba la cero tolerancia.
So the first thing that I heard was that there was 0 tolerance to illegals.
Entonces los oficiales de migración me dijeron, tú te tienes que ir con tu familia, o decídelo y tus hijas se quedan y las damos en adopción.
You have a choice. You can just leave with everybody or your family, or B, you can leave, but your kids can stay. But you have to decide what you want to do. Oh, the kids have to be, if you leave and you leave your kids here, they have to be adopted by somebody else.
Entonces llega la fecha que yo me tenía que ir.
So the date that I have to leave was coming very, very soon.
Entonces en la familia conocíamos a don Rubén Herrera.
We knew a guy by the name of Rubén Herrera.
Entonces él era un activista muy de gran corazón. Entonces,
he was very active in the immigration situation, and he knew everybody.
Y entonces llegó a hablar con con nosotros dos, con la familia, y me dice, no te puedes ir. Me dice, no puedes ir al peligro y llevar a tus hijas que corran peligros y no las puedes dejar.
He told her, you shouldn't go. You're going to Honduras to face some uncertain future, maybe danger, very, very extreme danger. So you shouldn't go.
Me dijo, voy a buscar para que tú vivas en una iglesia. Entonces, yo me quedé en show y dije, ¿cómo va a ser eso? Y me dice, no te preocupes. Entonces, él empezó a buscar, a contar mi historia.
So he started to look around for asylum, and he thought it was a good idea to ask churches around and see if he could find a place for her to stay.
Llegó a la iglesia Pittsburgh luterana, habló
And
con la pastora y respetada.
So he came to
Pastora
First
Sally.
English Lutheran and talked to Sally, and
Entonces, cuando me llama y me dice, solo tienes que moverte, la pastora dijo que sí.
so just get your stuff around,
Por
put all your
ella-
stuff together, and you can move to the church.
Pero
The
me dice-
pastor said that it's fine.
Pero me dijo, primero, pues ella dice sí, pero va a hablar con todos los de la comunidad.
The pastor said, yes, you can stay here, but we're going to talk to the congregation and see what they say.
Entonces él me dice, muévete. Empezamos a sacar todas las cosas del apartamento. Empezamos a tirar cosas que sí las necesitábamos, pero no sabíamos cómo íbamos a hacer. Se dejaron allí para si alguien las quería coger.
So we started to put our things together to get ready to move, and we had to leave a lot of stuff in the apartment because we didn't really know what was going to be the situation.
Y seguimos ahí, la comunidad pues me cogió, me dieron un gran apoyo. No tengo palabras y estoy muy agradecida.
So we moved to church. The congregation was wonderful. They were very sympathetic. And I can't express in words how I feel about staying at the church.
Lo que yo quería era estar con mi familia.
What I wanted to do is to be with my family.
Y que mi hija, la pequeña, tiene necesidades especiales y quería que ella estuviera recibiendo eso, terapias y todo eso.
I have my little girl. The younger one has a girl with special needs, and she wanted to keep her into the care of specialists here in town.
Porque todas las peticiones que metieron la abogada fueron denegadas, no quisieron.
The lawyer in charge of my case tried to tell the judge about all this situation, but the judge kept saying, no, you can't stay here. You can't stay in this country.
Pedimos por asilo para que dieran paro de deportación. Nos negaban todo.
So we asked, when we got to be at the church in asylum, we asked, please stop the order of deportation. But they denied it again.
Pues estuve 2 años y medio, perdón, en la iglesia viviendo.
I was there in the church with my family for about 2.5 years.
Fue algo estar privada de la libertad es terrible.
To be captive that way is terrible.
Esa es mi historia y pues aún sigue vigente mi deportación. Salí fuera hace un año.
The order of deportation is still on. I have been out of the church for about a year.
Y pues vamos a ver si nos aprueban la abogada puede hacer algo para que puedan preabrir mi caso otra vez.
The lawyer's going to try to to be able to change the mind of the judge. They're going to try to open the case again and see if there's any chance she can stay.
Si podemos hacerlo, pues por asilo o para que paren mi deportación, más que todo, porque mi deportación está vigente, pues ellos tienen la decisión en cualquier momento.
So I'm supposed to be deported. That is not hasn't changed, but we're going to try to make it for them to change it.
Y pues espero que la abogada pueda ayudarlos porque no tenemos muchas esperanzas, pero espero en Dios que hay una pequeña oportunidad para mí.
I'm not very optimistic about the final decision, but with the help of God, maybe there's a chance for me to stay.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam. Thank you for translating. Nick, will you flip the bar on the... Little trivia for you here. These are heavy stories. We know it. What percentage of Americans say that immigrants are invading our country? People like Miriam, right? That's the story. And replacing our culture and ethnic backgrounds. Is it 15%, 31%, 42%, or 57%? Make your guess on your phone there. And Nick, the answer is, thank you, 31%. It's a weird feeling, isn't it, to feel like I'm glad I got the answer right and I wish I hadn't gotten the answer right? But it's that 31% is also made up of evangelical Protestants and Republicans and certain demographics. So we know that messaging has to happen to certain groups of people in the country. 320 million people in this country are a lot. We don't all think the same. But we do end up thinking like people who think like the people who think like the people like us. And that's what happens. So what we have to do is try to find ways to move the opinions inside of certain groups. And that's some of the work that groups like ours do, so that they can hear stories of people like Miriam and Dora, who you're going to hear from in a moment, and feel impacted by that. So messaging can't just be only to those of us who already agree. Now, sometimes you have to preach to the choir, because I've been a pastor for a lot of years, and I know that a lot of choirs lose their voice. A lot of choirs lose their spirit, and we got to start waking up, speaking up, and standing up a whole lot often. So we need all of our voices in this, whether you agree, disagree, or don't know what you think about these issues. It's really important. All right, Nick, would you give that thing a push? One more time. You're going to see a video here about the work that Dora does, and then you're going to hear from Dora here in a minute. So this is the work that Dora is a part of.
solo métalo un ratito en el agua, ¿ok? Que Dios le bendiga, hijo. Por lo menos vino aquí para que nosotros le demos una manita, oye. Lo siento mucho, de verdad.
6 días en el desierto.
Qué horrible, hijo, por Dios, qué horrible.
3 días estuve en la línea esperando a entrar. Y ahí la comida se estaba terminando, por eso se me agotó todo. Suero, Gatorade.
Lo
Ya
siento.
el agua ya no.
Que vamos a dejar que se seque un poquito, ¿ok? Ay, perdón.
No, es que mis rodillas.
So he's hurting because he was with friends. But his 3 friends were able to walk with no problem. But he got his feet horrible. And I'll show you why, because the shoes that the smugglers give these people are horrible. This is how cheap they are. And every single pair of shoes that they get from the smugglers causes those blisters. So part of his story is very tragic, and it's very common that they get hurt and the group leave them behind because they want to go, they're going to do their journey, but the person who stay behind is when they risk their life to die. And this is what high school kids are doing, all the way in
Providence, Rhode Island.
Yes, beautiful. So I mean, I'm so thankful. And they write these beautiful notes, and they put $20 for them so they can have some money for their journey. ¿Usted la leyó, la notita que le hizo la niña? ¿La leyó? La notita. Una niñita de 14 años escribió eso.
Querido amigo, hola, mi nombre es Katy, soy estudiante en los Estados Unidos y tengo 14 años. Entiendo que tu vida.
Lo siento mucho. Muy linda. Que tu vida vale mucho, ¿verdad? Y la vida después puede incluir desafíos y luchas, dice. Encuentra salud y felicidad y éxito. Espero que tu viaje sea seguro por ayudar e incluido una donación para que en cualquiera de tus necesidades te deseo suerte. Con amor, Katy. Una niña de 14 años. Okay? This is beautiful. This is what these kids did. It's beautiful. Usted entró aquí por Sázabe, ¿verdad? ¿O entró por altar?
Por altar. Todos esos son muertos.
Todos. Todos, todos. Todo lo que usted ve rojo son todos los muertos que hemos encontrado desde el año entre 1999 hasta ahora. Hemos encontrado 3.862 muertos en estos desiertos. ¿Sí?
Okay, gracias.
Dios me lo bendiga, hermano.
Usted igual.
Guatemala.
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 Él es mi hijo.
Thank you for being in here. This is really amazing crowd. I'm so happy because we need young people. I even dress up a little younger today because that's our new generation, right? We're almost about to pass the baton. This is what we do every day in our borders. And Miriam, my new sister, love her. you cannot love Miriam, right? I just met her. And le estoy diciendo que es mi nueva hermana en la lucha, in the fight. I was telling Miriam that, because she says, why you do that? And I say, because we all have a mission in this life. And sometimes it takes something, a tragedy or something different, a big event in our life to change or to figure out what we want to do in our lives. Well, my story began in 1980, and I was only 19 years old. So by now, you know how old I am? And that's very sad. But you have to live with grace, right? Old age with grace. So I came when I was 19 years old to this country. And I fled my country because of a civil war in 1980. And I tell everyone, no one ever leaves their country for pleasure. You leave your family, you leave your loved ones, your roots, your culture, your food, your dreams in a backpack because you're fleeing for your life. And this is what we're seeing every day right now with our brothers and sisters in Ukraine. And that's what happened in my country. More than 1 million people, we left our country because the war of 12 years killed 75,000 people.
Where is this?
El Salvador. I'm sorry, I didn't. El Salvador. That's where I'm from. So it's been taking a lot. And I tell everybody, my story, it was my story and our story. Because I was lied by the smugglers who are tremendous, a billionaire organized crime that is alive, and it continues to take people away. And I trust them, my family trusts them to take me out from my country, because I wanted it to be a social worker. I've always had that in me. But I know that if I stay in my country, I would have died. And my mother said that. Now she's in heaven. And she said, you're my oldest one. And my mother was a single mom with us. So I started working when I was 10 years old. That's very common in our countries. Empezamos a trabajar jovencitas, ¿verdad? So I left with other people. It was 45 Salvadorians that we left in a bus, almost like Miriam, but it was 45. And I'm going to make a very short story because it's a long story, but we got to the town of Mexico, and that was my third try. I tried to get to this country to find refuge 3 times, and I was deported 2 times back to my country. And I was deported the second time in the month that Bishop Romero was murdered. And I knew I was in trouble because I knew that the government was keeping an eye on us, young people. And I left. And they were questioning, why did she left? Why did she have to hide? So the last time when we were deported back in March, I hid in my house for all those months until the end of June of 1980, when we hired these smugglers that promised us a very fun, safe trip to the United States, and that we were going to be fine. Back in the time, $2,500 promised me safety. We, 45 Salvadorian children, men, women, left our country with our backpacks. In 7 days' journey, we were in the border town of Sonorita, Sonora. And it's beautiful area, gorgeous desert. The desert of Arizona is amazing and it's beautiful. And it's next to a big monument. It's called Organ Pipe. If you guys want to Google that, it's beautiful. But it's deadly. We didn't know anything about the desert. Nothing. We did not have appropriate shoes. We did not have water enough only 1 gallon of water, to cross the desert in July 1980 with 117 degrees. Some women in my group had high heels because they told us that within an hour we were going to be in the United States and that a plane was going to take us to California. But this is what happened to us because we don't know. They preyed on us. We're naive. And in that tragedy, by the 6 days that we got lost, by the second day we ran out of water. We were drinking RP, shaving lotion, anything that we can find that it was liquid. Some of the young girls, beautiful girls, their life was stopped. There's 3 sisters, a 12, a 14, and a 16. They marked my life forever. Because I was 19, and I was almost like the big sister in the trip. Their mom trusted the smugglers to bring them to the United States, and all those 3 girls died in the desert. We had a pregnant woman. So 14 of us, 13 survived. 14 people died in that tragedy, looking for refuge, looking for safety. So due to that, every single day, I live this mission. And this is what I will never stop. I scream. I was telling you, the story was my story. And it was very, very reserved inside of me because it's very painful and it's very traumatic. Not even my own children, and I have 5, they knew details of my story. But in 1916, when I started hearing those in the television, that we are nothing but rapists, we're nothing but criminals, we were nothing but no good, I said, Dora, this is your time. You got to open your mouth. You got to speak out. And I have. And I have. Thank you. So it's been very tough to share my story over and over and over again. But the precious thing is that stories change people's thinking. Stories change hearts. And when I see the stories every day of my brothers and my sisters and those borders, the feet of a man, when you see a man crying because all he wanted to do is cross these borders to provide better life for his children back in Guatemala, where the environmental issues are causing so much displacement, and that's why they're leaving. We have so many people from those villages that don't even speak Spanish. So it's really even hard to communicate with them. But we had to be creative. So, out of all this work in the past, I don't know if any of you know about Title 42, if you heard anything about this. So Title 42 is a CDC code. It's a health code, okay, that is used during pandemics to protect large group of people, right? Well, the last president used that in his benefit to immediately expose all our people, all our migrants that were trying to come to this country to ask for asylum. Rob the right to ask for asylum, nothing. You get arrested, you say your name, and they put you in a group, and you're back. That is Title 42. And now with the new presidency, we've been trying really hard because Biden promised us that he was going to get rid of that Title 42 in the first day. Well, he couldn't because it went to the Superior Court. Somebody in Texas fought that. So now it's in Superior Court, and they have to review this every single month. But what happened when that's going on is there are people is being arrested, and even if they do have a case, that dual process is taken away from them. They are going back to sometimes to the port of entry or the area where they were arrested, or sometimes they are taken to a different area where their life is more in danger because they own their business to another person from the cartel. Because no one comes to our borders without a guide, because they own those places. And we're giving them a business that is millions and millions of dollars. Each person that comes to our borders has already paid at least $10,000 to these people. All these children that you see in the news that are crossing our borders, their parents, their families are paying these horrible people thousands of dollars to bring their kids. They are just drop off at the border and they tell them, go, somebody will find you. And we find them sometimes, not all the time. So that Title 42 has really destroyed what we really are as a country, in the sense that we are robbing through the eyes of everybody the right for a person to ask for safety. And hopefully this works, what we're doing, trying to share the word. Then it's another new law that he put in place. So this guy changed laws in the middle of the night in a tweet. And we're an activist, we're at the border thinking, oh my God, what is next? So July 17, 2019, in the morning, it was a Remain in Mexico order. And we're like, what? What is this? Well, he shut the borders completely for asylum seekers. That's why we had thousands of people in our borders in Mexico. That's where the crisis is, because our people has nothing. And they have their children living in the weather, in the environment, in the cold, in the heat, waiting for a chance to tell someone their story. And that is still on. This administration has not been able to get that out of the way. That's still on. So the fight continues. We can't stop. I thank you for giving me the space to share with you my passion, my mission. And thank you, young people, really. My hopes are on you guys, really, because I love it. In our area in Tucson, Arizona, it's a place of community. It's a place of humanity. It's a place where the sanctuary movement came alive in 1980 with our story, and it continues. But most of our people, our volunteers, are 60 plus, and we are out there in the heat and the winter putting water in the desert. So I hope you come along. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dora. My name is Dan. I was one of the riders on the We the People ride. And I rode from Nogales, Arizona to El Paso. And just a deeply moving experience to feel the heat, to see the desert, to see the expanses that people walk to try to make it to America. And rather than tell you more about my story, I just thought I'd play this song that tells a little bit of how I grew up in the church and how that has led to some real disappointment in the church for how the church has behaved. And so this is a song called Hymn for the 81%, and it references the 81% of white evangelicals that voted for Donald Trump and supported these policies vocally. So here's that song. I grew up in your churches, Sunday morning and evening service. knelt in tears at the foot of the rugged cross. Taught me every life is sacred. Feed the hungry and clothe the naked. Learn from you the highest law is love. And I believed you when you said I should trust the words in red to guide my steps through a wicked world. I assumed you'd do the same, so imagine my dismay when I watched you lead the sheep straight to the wolves. You said to love the lost, I'm loving you now. You said to speak the truth, well, I'm calling you out. Why don't you live the words that you put in my mouth? May love overcome and justice roll down. Oh, they started putting kids in cages, ripping mothers from their babies, and I look to you to speak on their behalf. Oh, but all I heard was silence, or worse, you justified it, singing glory, hallelujah, raise the flag. See, your fear had turned to hatred, but you baptized it with language torn from the pages of the good book. And you weaponized religion, and you wonder why I'm leaving to find Jesus on the wrong side of your walls. And you said to love the lost, well, I'm loving you now. You said to speak the truth, I'm calling you out. Why don't you live the words that you put in my mouth? May love overcome and justice roll down. Come home, come home. You're better than this. You taught me better than this. Come home, come home. You're better than this. I used to think you were better than this. But come home, come home. Oh. You said to love the lost. I'm trying to love you now. You said to speak the truth. That's why I'm calling you out. Why don't you live the words that you put in my mouth? May love overcome and justice roll down. 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 Thank you so much.
Casa de la Misericordia y de todas las naciones, lo que nos dedicamos es ayudar a las personas con mayor vulnerabilidad en su vida. En este caso, en este momento es como un albergue, es un refugio para migrantes que están solicitando asilo a los Estados Unidos. La gente que está aquí en su mayoría son mexicanos, muchos vienen de Centroamérica, incluso de Sudamérica, Venezuela, Colombia, Nicaragua, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, que van llegando hasta llegar a esos nogales. La gente que está aquí no está porque quiere. Es gente que ha sufrido o su vida corre peligro y no pueden estar en sus lugares de origen y por eso tienen que dejar sus pueblos, sus casas para buscar una serenidad, una paz que no tienen en sus tierras. Esta mariposa representa la migración, the migrants.
Es la monarca, ¿no?
La monarca. Y para nosotros es como símbolo de la migración. Y al fondo voy a poner cometas. Un niño allá de aquel lado. Un niño con kite.
The United States law is that the only way you can seek asylum is on U.S. soil. You can't ask for asylum in the United States, even if you qualified for it, until you get to the United States and get on U.S. soil.
It's not just a border issue, it's a United States issue. And we're trying to ask the question, who's included in the we the people?
So the reason migrants are coming to the border and then turning themselves over to the Border Patrol is to ask for asylum.
We're a group of pastors that are organizing this and traveling the country. We really want faith voters to care about these issues. We know that a lot of faith voters think one way on Sunday when they're at church and then act another way on Tuesday when they walk into the voting booth.
The We the People ride started in San Diego, California, and now these bikers are going to head on over to check out the migrant situation on the other side before they continue along their journey to Jacksonville, Florida.
I keep thinking about all the times that we have crossed into Mexico, how easily we can enter into Mexico, that the Mexican government just welcomes people like us to come in. And yet, in the United States, we put up razor wire and walls and armed guards and U.S. Army to keep people from coming in. That disparity just haunts me every day that we ride along this border.
This doesn't feel as much like a shelter as it does a big family. Can you talk a little bit about how you create a sense of community?
Su situación permanece en un estado de familia. De hecho, nosotros recibimos familias completas, papá, mamá, hijos, mujeres solas con hijos o mujeres solas, que son las más vulnerables o menos espacios tienen donde llegar. Y crear esta comunidad ha sido como una respuesta a la necesidad, ponernos en los pies del migrante, ponernos en los pies de ellos y crear a través de la experiencia con el trabajo de las personas esta posibilidad de vivir en familia.
The word that keeps coming back to me on this ride is the word slander. And partly because in the Christian narrative, that's such an important word, to not slander people, that you don't speak of people in ways that are untrue and that are slanderous. And yet we slander these people who are trying to come to this country by creating all these narratives. The other story we should be telling is that these are survivors, these are heroes to their own family. These little girls and little boys who look up to their moms and dads who are making their way across other countries to get to safety. Those children are seeing their parents as heroes of their family and heroes of their faith. And we act as if they're the problem.
That incredible woman's name is Sister Lika. She's in Nogales, Arizona, or Nogales, Mexico, right across from Nogales, Arizona. She would love for you to come visit her. You can go. Dora would love for you to come visit her and the work that she's doing. You're going to meet Mark. He would love for you to come to Agua Prieta, Mexico, and Douglas, Arizona. Part of the reason we're traveling, want to share these stories, introduce you to these people, is because we want to recruit you to go and to know them. And if you can't go, you know you could go. And somebody else might say, I'm interested in the border, but I don't know. And you can say, well, I know some people. I have a friend or a friend of a friend. And these people want you to know. And they want you to go. And they want you to see and to smell and to taste and to feel. So if you sign up for our stuff, we'll stay in touch with you. If you ask any of us here, we'll help you get in touch with these people. And just let it start thinking. Just know the invitation is out there. You don't have to ride your bike across the border to meet these people, but if you wanted to, of course, you'd be welcome to. You're going to meet Mark Adams here in just a moment, but we have a little trivia question for you. Since the creation of the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, which some of us know and understand that phrase, in 2003, the federal government of the United States has spent how much money on the agencies that carry out immigration enforcement? Have they spent, or has our country spent, $700 million since 2003 on border enforcement? $1 billion? $10 billion, $333 billion. How much has the federal government spent on enforcement of the U.S. border since 2003? Write your answers down. You get to hold your cards up and wave them around if you get it right. You all ready? And the answer is, you already know you got it right back there, don't you? And the answer is $333 billion. I don't want to go on a full rant right now, but when people tell you we don't have the money for things, we got the money for things. $333 billion has been spent. Some people in our government, on both sides of the political aisle, on all sides of the continuum, like to say, well, once we secure the border, then we can talk about immigration reform. And I just want to ask them, how much do you think that will cost? Because $333 billion hasn't done it. Maybe the big spenders need to step back for a minute and let us solve immigration problems. It does sound familiar in some places. Yeah, we have the same problem here. This is Mark Adams. You're going to hear from him now in a moment. Mark was good enough to take us in on our ride and to share with us his experience and to introduce us to the work that he does. Mark, thank you for your good friendship, and thanks for being here today.
It's a delight to be here with you today. I'm Mark. I'm originally from Clover, South Carolina, on the North Carolina-South Carolina border. And I've lived in Agua Prieta, Sonora for the last 24 years, right on the border with Douglas, Arizona. Doug asked me to share a little bit of what it's like to live on the border. And I shared a story from earlier about when my wife, Miriam, and I, we serve as mission co-workers of the Presbyterian Church with a binational ministry called Frontera Cristo. And we have three main purposes. We build relationships and understanding and community across borders. We respond in faith to the realities of migration, and we respond in faith to the realities of the drug culture. We were speaking in a church, Miriam and I had migrated from 2,000 miles from South Carolina to the U.S.-Mexico border, and she had migrated from 2,000 miles south on the Guatemala-Mexico border to Agua Prieta, and that's where we encountered one another, and we formed our family there. And we've raised our family there. And so we were sitting and doing a program one time, and someone asked a question. Miriam was standing here, I was standing here, and they said, well, is it easy to cross the border? And Doug kind of stole my stick from that last video thing. And I looked at Miriam, and she looked at me, and I said, honey, why don't you take this one? And she said, she looked and she goes, it depends. It depends if you're him or me. It depends if you're you or Miriam. It depends if you're you or Dora. It depends. Right after Miriam and I got married, we went to Agua Prieta, from Agua Prieta to the coast in Sonora for our honeymoon. And so we had crossed, we had driven up. It was easier to go to Tucson and down than across Sonora at the time because of the roads. And so we did that easily, and as we're coming back, we went through the border piece, and Miriam had what's called a B1, B2 visa, and so we were going to go back home. And so the border guard said, well, do you have a permiso? To Miriam, and a permiso is when you travel further in the United States. And so we don't need a permiso to go to Tucson. Well, from here you do. And so they started asking these questions of Miriam about, do you have a water bill? And she gave her a water bill. I mean, who cares a water bill? Do you have, and the guy looked at, well, this is 2 months old. Do you have an electricity bill? Well, this one's 3 months old. And it became very evident that he was not going to let Miriam in. And so me being the really powerful person, the white guy, goes up and, sir, is there a problem here? And he said, well, she's trying to figure out, whether she can come into the United States. I said, so are you trying to protect me and the rest of the United States from my wife? And he said, that's exactly what I'm doing. Because if I give her this permiso, she could live in the United States. And I just was about to explode, and Miriam pulled me away. She says, cálmate, Marcos, cálmate. And so we went back through Mexico. It took us 7 hours instead of 4 hours. But we went back through Mexico. And as we were going, I said, honey, were you not mad? She goes, what good would be getting mad be? And I said, if you weren't mad, what did you feel? And she said, humiliated. Humiliated. Our border and immigration policy humiliates people created in the image of God every day. Our immigration and border policies strip the dignity of people like Dora and Miriam and my spouse Miriam every day. Later, like a week later, I was asked to speak in a church up in Sun City. Nobody had been born in Sun City. It's a community of over 55. I started by saying, raise your hand if you were born here. Everybody had migrated. But they'd given me the topic. They had given me the topic. And the topic they gave me to speak in this church was Mexico, friend or enemy? And so I started and I said, raise your hand if you're a friend of Mexico, right? Oh, everybody, right? Raise your hand if you're an enemy of Mexico. Maybe 1, 2 people rose their hand. And I said, last week I discovered I'm my wife's best friend and also her enemy. Because what that officer did, he did on my behalf as a U.S. citizen. You know, as much as I want to say this is what separates where I live in Agua Prieta from Douglas, Arizona. It's a 18-foot steel barrier draped with 4 concertina wire, flesh-ripping wire. And as much as I would like to say this is President Trump's wall or somebody else's wall, it's mine. It's mine. I'm a U.S. citizen. That's mine. And if you're a U.S. citizen, that's yours. For a long time, I wanted to blame other people, whether it would be the bad people in the green uniforms, the pinche migra, or those coyotes. Oh, those coyotes, they're everybody's favorite people to hate, right? And if you're on the other end of the spectrum, you can talk about, listen to the language we use, illegal aliens. Aliens was a legal term. It is a legal term in our law, you know, or the vigilantes, you know. But at any rate, what we do is we demonize groups of people, but there's a system in place that we're part of. And as long as we focus on these flesh and blood pieces, this system that's in place that continues to dehumanize and kill people every day are going to remain in place. And that's tough news. And so what do we need to do? Do we want to keep this? Is that what we want? I remember I was invited to speak to a youth group who wanted to come across and spend some time with the youth group in Agua Prieta. And I got a call and from the pastors, and they were a little embarrassed because the parents were upset because they didn't want them to go, their youth to go across the border because they were worried they're going to do something illegal. They knew we went out in the desert, we put water out in the desert. It was a relatively conservative church, and so I went to speak to him. He said, "Will you come and let our parents interrogate you?" And I said, talk to you. And I said, sure. And so I went, and I talked with all the different ways that the youth could engage with the youth of Agua Prieta without going out into the desert or do anything that was specifically on the issues of immigration, just to make relationships. And so I could see this one parent really getting upset, and she was sitting kind of on the edge of her seat, and she was a colonel in the Army. There's an Army base there. And she was kind of sitting on her seat, and then all of a sudden she says, "Mark, what I want to know is, do you support illegal immigration?" Do you support illegal immigration? I wasn't ready for that kind of anger. But it was one of those spirit moments because I wasn't prepared to answer. And I said, "Colonel," I said, "I don't want to support illegal immigration." I said, "But I do every day." I said, every time I go and buy fruit that's been picked in the United States, I'm supporting illegal immigration. And every time I go into a restaurant, I'm probably supporting illegal immigration. And anytime I eat meat that's been packed in the United States, I'm supporting illegal immigration. And anytime I go into a building that's been built in the last 10 years and their sanctuary had just been built, I had talked to the workers. Anytime I do that, I'm supporting illegal immigration. Or anytime I go and stay in a hotel, I'm probably supporting illegal immigration. Colonel, do you support illegal immigration? The question becomes, if we don't want to do something, how do we turn our backs on that? We're in Lent. How do we repent from participating in a system that's oppressive, that's divisive, and leads to death? That's what we have to do. And it's not just about voting. It's making our voices known. It's using our money to buy things that allow people to stay on their land. It's how do we invest our money so that communities can thrive instead of our bank accounts thriving. I'll close with this. Back in 2006, this is how long I've been at this. We were visiting with Senator McCain. Senator McCain, I'm from Arizona. And Senator McCain was working with Senator Kennedy on immigration reform. And he said to us, he says, "Where are y'all? I'm getting killed. 60 calls to 1 are telling me how awful I am, wanting immigration reform. Where's the voice of the church? Aren't y'all supposed to want immigration reform?" But unfortunately, we're quiet. So I hope that when you leave this place, I'm sure there are many folks who aren't quiet, but I hope that you'll go, and I hope you'll call your congressperson tomorrow. I hope you'll call your senators tomorrow. And maybe they won't listen, but let them know that they have constituents who care about Dora, about Miriam, about my family, about families throughout Ohio who make this place a stronger and better place. Y muchas gracias, Miriam, por darme un abrazo y darme la bienvenida a su comunidad. Dios la bendiga.
Maria, thank you. Thank you for doing this.
Gracias por hacer esto.
Maria, will you tell us your name and where you're from?
Dinos tu nombre y de dónde eres.
Buenas tardes a todos. Mi nombre es María. Yo vivo allá en Aldea Timactés, San Matías Tetambo, municipio de... Salí de mi país porque peligro para mí, peligro para mi hijo, y violencias, drogas, violaciones, no hay comidas, secuestradores para mis niños. Mi esposo hace años me dejó, se abandonó, él casó con otra mujer y se abandonó con mis hijos, por eso yo no quiero abandonar mis hijos, yo quiero mantener mis hijos.
¿Cuántos niños tienes?
2.
I have 2 children.
Un varón y una hembra.
One boy and one girl.
How old are they?
¿Cuántos años tiene?
Es mi hijo, trae 11 años.
One is 11.
Mi niña dejó 9 años.
And my girl that is back in Guatemala is 9 years old.
So why is your daughter back in Guatemala?
¿Por qué dejaste a tu niña en Guatemala?
Porque no hay dinero, ya no alcanza mi dinero cuando salí. Por ahora se perdió unos 34,000 quetzales, porque cuando me traen mis 2 hijos, muchos dineros, sí es difícil. Me quedo triste. Cuando me dejó mi niña allá en Guatemala, estoy triste. Yo quiero luchar por mis niños. Yo no quiero perder mi vida, mis hijos. Allá no hay luz, no hay agua potable, no hay nada. Yo me trabajé día a día. Yo me salí como a las 6 de la mañana. Me llego hasta las 4 de la tarde. Apenas me gané unos 30 quetzales. No hay dinero, no hay comida. Estoy triste. Ya va 11 años, quedo con mis hijos. Ay, estoy luchando por eso. Yo quiero luchar por mi vida, mis hijos. Yo no quiero.
I wanna keep fighting for the sake of my children.
Yo estoy miedo por aquí. Nadie me ayuda, pero gracias.
No, para servirte.
Sí.
When nobody was helping us, nobody looked at us. We are very thankful God sent us because everybody ignores us.
This is your son?
¿Es tu hijo?
Sí, es mi hijo.
Pastor, thank you for sharing this.
Gracias por ayudarnos.
Gracias. Thank you for helping us.
Gracias.
Yo abrazaba a mi niño, rápido salgan allí porque ya varias gentes vamos a cruzar, digo. Y luego salí, bajó del cima de eso, iba corriendo con mi niño porque son peligros también, ahí llegan los más feos también.
Nosotros solo, ellos dicen pues para los coyotes, dicen que cuando nos traen, dicen que nos dan comida, nos dan un autobús para llevarse, pero no era así.
To God of all breath, we ask for love and care and kindness and goodness to these sweet mothers, sons that we've met today. Changed policy for the United States, safety in that plaza, and to put it in the words of Jesus, may your kingdom come and your will be done on earth as it is in heaven, because this is not that. So we will say an amen, but it is a paused and broken amen, because this work is unfinished. Amen.
Little piece of trivia here trivia question for you. Of all illegal immigrants allowed in the United States each year, what percentage can come from any one country? I didn't even know this was a question you had to ask. The United States puts a limit on a number of immigrants from any one country based on what percentage of the total amount of immigrant visas that are awarded. Is it 7% can come from one country, 32% from one country, 76, and I kind of cheated the last one, no limit. Told you that was. So make a guess. What percentage can come from any one country? Write it down on that little card because it's good for your brain to do these things. And the answer is 7%. Did you get that right? When people say, why don't they come legally? Because we only allow 47,000 new visas from any one country. So Mexico can only have no more than 47,000 new visas every year. There's 320 million people in the United States. Just hold that number in your brain and think about the fact that Mexicans can receive 47,000 immigration visas in a year. So we don't have a pathway for people to become part of this country that makes sense and that people can access. And we want you to hear that story. But some people do make it in this country. And actually, hold on to that second there, Abe. Hold on a minute before Abe comes up. You're going to hear from Abe in a minute, but just hold on one second. Because Ginny's going to tell you something. Because Ginny, I want this to be a good transition to you. Ginny has a really short invitation for you to be a family that would support asylum seekers who are already in the United States. Because some people do get in an asylum, but then they don't have people to support them. Is that right? All right, well, tell us about all that.
Okay, great, thank you. I'm so glad you called on me because I was almost having to leave because I have another meeting at 8. So
You are a busy person, Ginny.
Thrilled. Hi, everybody. I'm very glad to be here. I'm very moved by your project, your passion, and the work you're doing. It is astounding. And we have to know these things because we can sit here in our country and there's no way we can know unless we hear from people like you. I was part of Miriam's team when she was in sanctuary at the First English Lutheran Church. And I was also part of Edith's team at the Mennonite Church. And she also is out of the church now. And I thought to myself, there has to be something more I can do. And then I heard about an organization called the Asylum Seekers Sponsorship Project. And I thought, well, what is that? And I listened to them and I learned about that. And I have a little snippet with my contact information in that website, which I'll leave. And they talked about people being in detention and except for the fact that they couldn't get in unless they had a sponsor or some family. And I thought, well, how many bedrooms do I have? 3. How many people are living in my house? 2. So I said, I think I can do this. So I found out more about it. And I've had, living in my home since June, a young man from Ghana. He traveled from the west coast of Africa over 2 years, down through South America, all the way up through South America, Central America, and Mexico. And he got arrested the minute he set foot in San Diego. And he was claiming he was coming from torture and a terrible persecution, and he wanted asylum. And he was stuck. And so I happened to get him. I said, I don't care who I get, as long as it's somebody that needs help. And so he has been living with me since June, and he just got his work permit and his Social Security number. And it's a great victory. He's thrilled. He's practically doing cartwheels. But my role was to provide shelter, some food, you have to eat, and I have built around me, because I have some friends, a community of support, so his legal expenses. So it costs about $7,500 for an asylum case, just so you know. It's not $80,000, it's not $2,000, about $7,500. So I raised it, almost. I still have a little bit to go. So it's possible, and so the reason I'm saying this is not all of us can go down to the border. But some of us can do something else, and this is that something else. So I will leave some of these little notes with the number of that organization and my number so that if anybody's interested or knows someone who's interested, you can apply to become a sponsor. That's it.
Thank you, Jenny. So good. So good. You might wonder, hey, how come you all came here, how come you guys came here to Columbus, Ohio, right? Of all the places that we could go for this kind of work that we're doing. Well, partly because, Ginny's here, and we wanted you to hear about that, but also because Abe Bonowitz lives here. I don't know if you all know Abe Bonowitz. You're going to hear from him just for a moment. Abe came on the ride with us on 2 different occasions and jumped on a bike and took some of the greatest photographs of them all. And we just asked Abe if he would share a bit for us about the impact of it and why it was long. Thank you, my friend.
Well, thanks, Doug. And it's so great to be here in Columbus and be able to get on one of these things 10 minutes from where I live. I grew up in Bexley, and that's where yay. And I, after traveling around the country, moved back here a few years ago. But I got on the ride in Douglas, which is right across the border from Agua Prieta. Mark, maybe now you remember me. And but I wanted to say that when I met Doug, when we were arrested together at the U.S. Supreme Court, my work is to stop executions and abolish the death penalty. And Doug has shown up so many times in support of my work. So I said, well, I'm going to show up and support when he's doing stuff. And I went on the Vote Common Good tour, and then when this bike ride came up, I was like, well, I got to figure this out, because, you know, I've been a human rights activist for, you know, 35 years now. And, you know, I'm aware of a lot of these issues. I've chosen to focus on the one thing. But when these opportunities come up, you know, I turn to my wife. There's my wife who's finally able to come in and engage one of these things, and Beth, and I said, hey, can I go on this thing? And she said, well, okay. And, you know, it's another 10 days away. But I found some work to sandwich the ride between, and I was able to justify the trip financially with my work. And then I went down there and hooked up and first met some abolitionists, some death penalty abolitionists in Tucson, and then went across the border to Agua Prieta, and that's where I started. And I was able to get on the ride and do, I think it was a total about 160 miles in that first part, from Douglas, Arizona, Agua Prieta to El Paso. And it was during this time, I had a lot of time to think, and also had a lot of time to contribute. One of my other passions was photography. That's what I went to school for, and so like this picture here is one of mine, and I'm pretty sure that this one here is one of mine, and then this one here, I think, is also one of mine. That's Brandon. I thought he'd be here today, but he's not. All right, so we'll miss Brandon on this trip, but it was in riding. My longest one-day ride was, I think it was this day, 61 miles, right? And it gets old, especially if you're a little bit out of shape. But you keep going, and you keep wondering, okay, how am I going to make another 10 miles? But it was during this time that I was thinking about my own immigration story. Now, I'm a second-generation American, right? My mom is over here, too. She was the first generation in our family born here, but all four of my grandparents got on that boat and didn't know what they were coming to. And I really don't even know very much about what was going through their minds and exactly what the situation was that they left. They were all here before 1920. But realizing that I come from an immigration story, and that each of us, almost everyone, probably everyone here, unless we have some Native Americans. Any Native Americans here? We've all got an immigration story. And what is it? And what was it like? And did we come with money? Did we come with nothing in our pockets? And how does that impact us? And while we're riding along, you know, this wall or this empty road, I mean, if you just pan up a little bit, you see nothing but, you know, sage grass and desert, and every once in a while you come across a military vehicle, or just a Border Patrol truck that's just sitting there waiting, or a Border Patrol van. We stopped a couple times and talked to these Border Patrol, because we would stop and talk to them. It's not like they're the boogeyman. You can't, I mean, they're just regular people just like us, except they're in a uniform and carrying a gun. And they're there to scoop up people who they catch coming across. There was one time we came over a hill, and there was this Humvee with a big thing sticking out of the top of it. And, you know, we stopped and we're looking around, and nobody's coming out. But we started, you know, we were talking, and then suddenly a soldier gets out. And we had a good 10-minute conversation with him. I posted a video that I took of that conversation. He was just a regular guy, but in uniform, watching for somebody that he was prepared to kill or apprehend because they were not supposed to be there. And when you think about what it was for us to ride and how long that day was, 61 miles, and Dan remembers, and all of you who were on that ride remember, you just wonder, okay, how much more do I have to go? And you think about it if you're walking. And you think about it if you're walking across the desert, and you have to carry whatever you've got, and you don't know where your next meal's coming from. And why can't we be more welcoming? Why can't we be more welcoming? That's the question that kept going on in my mind. And what I hope comes out of this experience for us tonight, you know, really I hope the takeaway tonight is, what am I going to do? Right? What am I going to do? When I was working with the farm workers, we did a march on the anniversary of Cesar Chavez's his death to his birth date, March 31st, to the first anniversary of his death on April 23rd. And this was in 1994. But the workers had come up with a slogan for this march. It was "Cada trabajador es un organizador." Cada trabajador es un organizador. Every worker is an organizer. And what that meant was it was a way to convey to everybody there's something that you can do with whatever you've got. If you're still in school, you can talk to people. If you've got a job and you're a taxpayer, you can talk to your legislator. Actually, it doesn't matter if you've got a job or if you're in school, whatever. We can talk to our legislators. And we can pick up a T-shirt or a button. And the reason that I encourage that is because it helps people start the conversation. When you're wearing a T-shirt or button like this, somebody says, "What's that about?" You get to have that conversation. And then when they say, "Well, that's really cool," you get to take the button off and give it to that person and ask them to wear it and take another one out of your pocket and put it on, because it means a lot more when it comes off of you, right? That's what we're challenged with tonight. Think about what can we do to further this mission of making this film and of this group that's going here, but what can we do to change the law, to change the public policy? It's for each of us to think about what we can do. So I want to encourage you, as we finish up the program tonight, to think about what is it that you can do to make the difference on this issue or whatever is your issue, but make sure you got an issue and make sure you're doing something about it. I also want to give just a quick heads up to Tim back there, Tim Gilman, who was driving the RV. He was like Mr. Support. And always showing up with the food, always showing up in the vehicle that's parked out front. What is it, a Suburban or whatever it is, with the trailer and all that. Nothing feels better than coming around the corner and seeing that, and knowing you're going to get to refill your water bottle and get another sandwich or whatever it is. And that's what we're asking. You know, Doug didn't ask me to do this, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Help us refill the water bottles. Help us get more sandwiches. Help us keep this on the path with whatever you can do. Whether it's telling people, whether it's sharing the Facebook feed or other social media, or actually coming on one of these trips. It's for us, each of us, to figure out what we can do and then to do it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
You guys can go ahead and click that forward. Keep going. I know some of you have to go. It's okay. No. You go ahead. You got to do your thing. Give you a minute to breathe. I know you've been taking a lot in. August 3rd, 2019 was the day that I shattered. I'm going to tell you about that quickly. I'm a mom, just like many of the moms that you saw in the video, the videos tonight. I had my 4 kids in the car in my minivan, and we had been back to school shopping at Walmart. And I held up my phone so we could take a little selfie, and the kids didn't really want to do it, but I made them do it anyway. They're college students, but, you know. I have to snap their photo when I see them, right? So they were in the car, and when I brought the phone down and I was going to post to Instagram, instead I looked and saw that there was a news, breaking news notification on my phone, and it was another shooting. As the details of that shooting became more clear and I found out more and more about them, that haunted me. There was a hole in my heart. Because I found out that shooter had been motivated by the current administration at the time. He had laid out his guns on the floor and written out Trump's name and took a photo of that, very proud of himself, and then drove across the state of Texas, went to El Paso, entered a Walmart, and the eyewitnesses told us that as he went through the store, he would pass over white people, save his bullets so that he could kill more brown people. And I couldn't stop playing that image over in my head, because in my family, if we had been in the Walmart in El Paso instead of Arkansas, where I live, he would have passed over me and my husband, my 2 older kids, my youngest kid, and that shooter would have shot my adopted Latina daughter. My whiteness could not protect her. And I was very haunted by that. I spent about a month kind of in a mental fog, not really sure what to do. In that time, I took my son to New York City to drop him off for college. I visited Lady Liberty. I wanted to see Ellis Island, where my great-grandmother, when she was 16 years old, had come across from Ukraine to start a new life. I have Ukrainian blood, right? I wanted to see that place. So I couldn't make the connection between what had just happened and Lady Liberty. So this organization, Vote Common Good, put out an opportunity for an experience at the border. And so I was able to go there and see with my own eyes. I got on a plane and flew, and we went and I saw that Walmart, and we held a vigil and saw the memorial, and it was a month later and people were still coming to grieve. And then we went and saw the wall itself, and I thought about the contrast between Lady Liberty and this ugly, rusty mess, this ugly metal that we had put up. And then we went to an in-district congressional hearing, and I was able to hear from the local officials and their policies that they were trying to work with, and the horror of how they were trapping people. And this was before COVID. This was before all of that had happened. And so I went back to my room that night in this quiet desert town, and I, watched the sun set in this beautiful space, in this holy, holy place. And I had this wrestling match with God, because it was clear that I needed to do something, but I couldn't figure out how that was going to work, because I'm just one lady. I'm just a mom. I'm not rich. I'm not influential. I'm not a Instagram influencer. I don't have any means. What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? How am I gonna say something? My relatives from Western Pennsylvania are never gonna believe. They're never gonna listen to me. Nobody is gonna believe me. And I heard God's voice in the quiet say, "You haven't said anything yet." And so I started talking. And I went out on the tour in 2020. I rode that bus out, and I said what I could say. And I also came home and I started making, because I am a broken china mosaic artist. I make things out of broken things. Our immigration policy is broken. I understand that. So I started making. There's this other artist in the room, this guy, Doug Padgett. He is a performance artist, as far as I'm concerned. He had this idea for this bike trip, and he said, "This is what we're going to do." And I said, "Okay, I'll go. I'm an artist. I'm not an athlete." But I went to Texas, and I rode 250 miles in Texas. I sat with those women, those moms. They're just like me, who would do anything to protect their kids. Had a meal with them, sat face to face. And then I went home for a little bit, and then I went back and I rode in Florida. I rode 250 miles in Florida. And I got all the way to St. Augustine and got to enjoy that celebration of reaching the ocean and putting my feet in the water. And I was scared and feeling very broken. I could feel how broken our country is, and I imagine you are feeling a little broken. Even just witnessing all of this, you're feeling broken. You're feeling a little shattered. And it's traumatic to stand by and watch horrible things happen and not to be able to do something. This is what I did. This screen, I think, is 14 feet long, and this piece of art that I made is 14 feet. That is real size. This is called Rend and Remember, and you're getting to see something that not very many people have seen yet. This will be in a museum in Washington, D.C. in the fall. It is 7 panels, like 7 days of the week. It's like a calendar. And we keep saying, we just got to get through next week, right? We just got to get through next week. There's also a map because it's made out of souvenir plates from the states in our country. So you see Texas and Colorado and Arkansas, where I'm from, and it is us. It's also made out of souvenir Mother's Day plates, right? That morning after the ride, I got this amazing experience. We were all waiting to head back to the hotel. Everybody was going in separate directions. And I got a chance to sit at a table in a very relaxed setting, and I got to sit with Dora, and I got to sit with Alma Ruth that you saw, and another lady, Maria, who leaves water in the desert. Just unguarded time, relaxed, chill, just telling stories, connecting. I hadn't had a chance to meet them before. And that time was so holy. And I was trying to think what they made me think of, and it dawned on me. These women in the desert. These women in the desert. That sister, oh my goodness, that sister. I had not seen that video until just now. I was over there blubbering. We really need to put out Kleenex instead of paper at these events. Yeah, that sister with her butterfly wings. My name is Vanessa, and Vanessa means butterfly. So that kind of hits hard. These women in the desert, they reminded me of the biblical story of a woman who found herself in the desert twice, on the edge of death. She was part of a system that was not for her. She'd been trafficked. Her skin was the wrong color. She had no power. She, once in the desert on the edge of death, was pregnant, about as vulnerable as it gets. And another time in the desert on the edge of death, placed her child under a bush and walked away because she couldn't stand the thought of watching him die there. But God came to her. And her name is Hagar. Her name in Hebrew means slave. Her name in Islam means beautiful nurturer. Hagar does something that nobody else in the biblical story does. Hagar names God. Usually God does the naming, but Hagar names God. And Hagar names God the God who sees. You are the one who sees. My job as an artist is to make you see. Doug, in inventing this bike ride, was trying to get us to see. I got a chance to ride, and I got a chance to see. And the filmmakers are trying to give you the chance to see. We also want to give you the opportunity to be a part. See, if there was one piece missing out of this, you would notice. It would be really obvious. Because your little piece, it matters. And I know you're probably saying, but it's not enough. It's not big enough. You got to start small and be humble enough to do the small thing. Because that's how God works. Little mustard seeds, little small things. That's the part that we all get to play. We get to take a small part. So we invite you in any of the ways this dear lady just mentioned, as an asylum, homes. That's a possibility. Come buy a t-shirt, have a conversation, be brave. Listen, it might make you anxious. Your families might be mad at you. They don't want to hear about it, whatever. Do it anyway. Do it anyway. Listen, I can't go home, but I'm going to keep talking. I can't go home and tell my family in rural Pennsylvania about it, but I'm going to keep on talking. So be brave and play your part. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Vanessa. Thank you all for being with us. Dan's going to lead us out with a song. Look, we know it's been, this is a long day. We did church service this morning, and we're still, some of you also went to church this morning. It's been long days. But there's long days for people that are walking across the desert, and long days for people that need help. If you want to give money to Dora, she will take it and give it to those people like she did to that man with the feet. We'll take your money back there at that table, and we'll send you home with a t-shirt or a hat or a button or whatever you want to start talking about it. If you want to help donate toward this project, to help finish this documentary, to get around. We'd love for you to do that. If you want to give some money to Miriam, I don't know, then the work that Miriam needs to do, or support the work that Mark is doing. Go ahead and do that. Go to that table back there. Turn in your little sheets, your piece of paper. Put your name and your email address and phone number on it. We'll put you in our database. And it's not like we're not going to message you every week. We're actually going to message you 3 times a week. Seriously, we do. We send stuff on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, so you're going to hear from us 3 times a week. Just delete it if you don't want to read it. Or say, well, maybe they're inviting me to come along, because in a Harvey Milk-like moment, we are here to recruit you. We want to take you with us, whether it's taking you like this or taking you with us to Grand Rapids, Michigan tomorrow, where we're driving to, and then we're going to be in Grand Haven and Grand Rapids and Holland, and then South Bend, Indiana, and then Madison, Wisconsin, and then Minneapolis, all within the next week. We're just going to be doing this every single day until I get home, and we're just going to keep doing it. We'd love for you to come with us, like literally. Maybe you want to come with us. We ran into Mark in Arizona, and now he's hanging around with us because he's good. And then Dora, now she's going to come with us. And that's how we met Nick back there in Holland. Now he's with, we're not running a commune or anything. You can't live with us and stay the whole time, but maybe you want to come for a day or for an hour or something else. So leave your name, come on a ride, take a shirt, take a hat, make a donation if you can. If you don't want to make a donation or can't, but still want something at the table, just take something from the table. It's all right. Wear it around, and when somebody asks you what it is or you bring it up, then go ahead and talk about it. Or maybe somebody else wants to do that. And we take money all the ways, right? You can Venmo us, you can credit card us, you can give us cash, you can give us Bitcoin, you can give us a check, anyway, whatever, all that stuff. But more importantly, please feel like you're part of this. And we live stream all these events, including this one, so it's going to be on all of our channels, on Facebook and on our website and on YouTube. If there was somebody that you were like, God, I wish so-and-so would have known that this was happening, they would have kind of liked it, share that with them, and we'll do the same thing tomorrow from Grand Haven and from Grand Rapids and all that. So we're just going to be keeping up with all this, and really appreciate your time. Dan's got a nice little ditty that takes us out together. And then, as Grant said, we can hang around as late as we want. So, we got to pack up and all that stuff, but we'll be hanging out too. And I really appreciate all of you being here. So thank you so kindly.
Yeah. Hey, would you stand up as you're able? And if you want to sing with me, you can probably pick it up by the end. It's a real easy chorus. It goes like this. Let the light in, keep it shining. Let it break into the darkness. All that love is us to see. We'll all be free. Let the light in, keep it shining. Let it break into the darkness. All that love is us to see. We'll all be free. There's a world at war, caught in suffering. Silent casualties, oh God, grant us peace. In these sleepless nights, I can hardly breathe. Despite brutality, I know that we'll be free. I know that we'll be free. So let the light in, keep it shining. Let it break into the darkness. All that love is us to see, we'll all be free. Let the light in, keep it shining. Let it break into the darkness. All that love is us to see, we'll all be free. Yes, we'll all be free. Oh, we'll all be free. May we take a little light out into the world, do some good, spread some love. Have a great night, everybody. Hey, we've got a little campfire out back if you want to enjoy it, and we've got food, so stick around, hang out. We'd love to talk with you and share more stories. Definitely pick up a shirt or a button or a hat. Take care.
That's awesome.
We do a lot of like